Spoilers ahead for Witch Queen campaign. The Witch Queen. Several years of lore finally coming to their conclusion. With such a build-up, is it possible to satisfy our expectations?
The cycle continues as Bungie reels in the players with their buildup of high production trailers and string of nebulous buzzwords as seen in the TWABs. Given the track record of disappointing expansions, I was very much anticipating the Queen bringing her A-game with this offering.
With the absolute botching of the 30th anniversary drop, both in the actual drop and the giving us the conclusion of the season before it happened, can Bungie renew our faith in the franchise with this overly hyped Witch Queen expansion?
This is hands down the best Destiny has looked. From start to finish, the entire campaign and its environments are dripping with detail. Bungie is well aware of this and gives players plenty of opportunities to take in all that detail by providing moments of awe with panoramic vistas, intricate hive architecture, or the foreign artifacts found within the pyramids. As a result, a large portion of my campaign playthrough was spent panning the camera across the different environments to gawk at all the delightful design.
We might have had a little too much fun with this whole panning thing. You want to get some pans of this? You gonna pan on this action? Are you panning slowly?
It's the slowest pan ever.
Wait, Master, you gonna pan on this? You panning on this?
Yeah.
Panning on this action? That's a good pan right there. This is a good place to pan from.
What's Bgame doing over here?
He's probably panning.
Getting a pan of this?
Let's get it
Pan,
closer.
I'm panning all over.
He did it.
I wish I
He
could
matched
pan.
it.
I'm gonna pan on it.
Don't-
Hold on.
never
I'm panning
cross
on
glaze,
it.
bro.
I'm
Glaze.
panning.
Is this guy stuck? Let me
Yeah.
get a pan.
Are you panning on this?
Oh my god, the pyramid is shifting.
Pan.
No,
Pan.
pan.
See?
Are you panning?
I'm panning.
This brings me to my next point. There's a lot of variety to explore. Within Savathun's palace alone, the various chambers you uncover each have a distinct vibe to them, which always had me eager to explore the next area. Furthermore, unlike many of the previous destinations, which always felt very amorphous and flat to me, the play spaces within Witch Queen are populated with numerous structures giving you ample cover and verticality, while still maintaining a large play space for you to move around in. My only gripe here is the lack of enemy density, leaving these beautiful locations mostly barren and void of life. For such phenomenal play spaces, it's a shame they are not complemented with more inhabitants for you to come across as you traverse the swamplands or monolithic hive structures.
There is no disputing that the environments in Witch Queen look amazing. And if you don't agree, well, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. At first glance, Savathun's throne world doesn't seem to be anywhere near as Orcs is, but there are a ton of caves and caverns to explore that add a lot of depth and space to the world. The art team did an amazing job representing the dichotomy between Savathun's beginnings in the dark to her ascent to the light, the shifts being represented in the ambiances between the swamp area and the castle areas. My only real gripes in this area come from the fact that while the areas look substantially better, I mean, we do have upgraded hardware, I feel like there was more to explore in Oryx's throne world. I also would like to echo Massive's point about enemy density. There's a whole lot of space, and usually you only find about 3 to 4 ads here and there. Short of the public event where you have to move the pyramid weapon, or an instance where you happen upon the Lucent Exterminators, aka the Qualicore quest, there aren't really any areas that feel full with regard to how big they actually are.
Bungie delivers again in terms of the art direction. Absolutely impeccable level design can be seen all throughout the Witch Queen's campaign. No two locations look alike, there's no copy pasta of assets, and some of the new weapons look fantastic as well. I really like how they always have such a good sense of design coherence. When weapons are from a set, you can clearly tell, and the new sets look pretty sleek. Yes, Bungie's art teams are no doubt some of the best, when they're not being intentionally handicapped, that is. For all the praise I give, I have to bring up the sheer laziness as well. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of seeing the same gun model brought back over and over again, just with a different name and paint scheme. Like this pulse rifle that came out in Vanilla D2. Or these submachine guns? Or these sidearms? This has got to stop. Every season it's the same feeling of, I wonder how much of this season's content will be recycled from previous seasons or D1.
I'm trying to think of a better story Bungie has told, and to be honest, I really can't. Not even everyone's beloved Forsaken campaign can top Bungie's delivery of this epic story. R.I.P. Cade. For the longest time, we've known that Savathun was our enemy, and her story has spanned across multiple seasons and DLCs. Finally, we get an epic conclusion to her storyline, and not only that, we get a never-before-seen look into how and why the sisters became the Hive Gods that we know them as. Straight out the gate, let me say that one of my biggest gripes across all of Destiny content was the fact that the story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, was always a breeze. There was never an instance where the story was delivered in a way that was actually challenging. Welcome to the legendary campaign. For the first time, the campaign actually had moments that were challenging to do, and the mechanics in play that actually had you have to think about how you were playing. This was an amazing addition, and while most people are just going to breeze past it as a concept of, oh, it's harder, I actually think that it helped to set the mood as to what we were doing and how dangerous the forces we were facing were. I said it before, and I'll say it again. I honestly believe this was the best delivery of a Destiny story that we've ever had.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way, Bgame, because with Massive and myself acting like jackasses during cutscenes on the initial playthrough, it's kind of tough for me to keep up with what was going on. If I'd been in your place,
to be honest, I don't know what I would have done.
So what do you think?
Almost as if you're shaping
Yeah?
that weapon
Yeah?
based on its own
Okay.
memory,
All right.
which parallels
Hey,
the
that's enough from you,
distortions
okay?
all over the
Are you with the Vanguard? Hello? We lost him.
Hello?
I can...
Giddy up! Let's go! Hiya! Hiya! Faster, faster!
Now, Star Horse.
There was a thing that should have popped up that you guys both just completely ignored.
Makes me
See the red balls?
Yes.
Oh, I see the red balls.
You shoot them, you get light.
Nothing popped up.
I don't know if
about
you
the
guys
balls.
knew this, but you gotta shoot the red balls.
I'm just looking. Okay, it doesn't
God.
let you go over there.
I don't know if it lets you go over here. Nah.
I feel like we wasted like at least 30 minutes waiting on Bgame at this point.
It's usually about 20 minutes of you guys comparing how low your light is.
Sorry about that, Bgame. But once I rewatched all the cutscenes and the story moments, and I saw the whole picture of what was going on, I actually really liked what they did with the campaign. There were one or two huge reveals during the campaign. At least if you know a bit about the lore, it's a big reveal. If you don't know too much about it, you might not be aware at how big of a reveal it is. I think what I enjoyed the most is finally knowing the true story behind Savathun and seeing her plan play out to its conclusion. I know, what a not hot take this is. Destiny player enjoys conclusion of story in said game. Wow. But after so long of Bungie setting up Savathun, I'm happy to see the conclusion so that we can move on to some other story arcs. We do have a bit of an anime villain situation on our hands where the current threat is the ultimate threat, until the next threat comes along and becomes an even bigger threat. Dun dun dun. But hey, I'm kind of a sucker for that type of stuff actually. I don't think Destiny's jumped the shark yet, and where it looks to be heading with the story is super interesting to me.
Look, all I know is that light is good and darkness is bad. Oh, and hive worms are now considered sushi. Not really, sort of, maybe? I will say the writing has improved and Savathun's dialogue as well as its delivery are well done. It's quite a relief after the cringe fest that was Dares of Eternity. While I never felt like I was transported to an episode from True Detective, the story of Witch Queen does provide a good amount of mystery and surprise. My only disdain for Bungie's storytelling is the rate at which it's delivered. This holds true for all past releases as well. Story beats are drip-fed over long stretches of time, oftentimes not living up to the build-up, as the story doesn't progress enough compared to the time passed. So while the insights into Savathun's plans were cool to unravel, in the grand scheme of things, the needle hasn't moved all that much. Here's hoping the raid pushes that narrative needle just a little bit further.
I think we have to talk about the glaive's mechanics before we can touch on anything else. Traditionally in shooty games, I like to shoot guns, not melee enemies. Initially, I didn't like the glaive because of this, but by the end of the campaign and into today, I am fully converted into a fan of the glaive, for PvE content that is. It does so much melee damage at 0 ammo cost that it's a surefire way to deal with enemies that have large health pools. Not to mention the shield you can use to block damage while you close the gap. Feels good to use this thing in PvE. The other thing I want to touch on is tether for Void Hunters. They definitely improved it by making one of the versions shoot 3 tracking arrows, but they still didn't fix the issue where it doesn't immediately tether enemies upon landing on the ground next to the target. There's still about a half-second wait for it to activate, which can be the difference between living or dying, and I still find it super annoying. Seems like such an easy fix. I don't know why it hasn't happened. Maybe there's some justification that I don't see, but it just annoys me every time it happens.
The gameplay, you say? Well, it's really quite simple, guys. Step 1, craft glaive. Step 2, equip glaive. And step 3, profit.
Glaive combat. Glaive.
Done.
Question mark? Glaive? Glaive. All in a day's glaive.
Oh my god, something's happening!
Glaive.
Oh my god! Ah!
I glaved. And I succeeded.
Got that guy on.
I'm glaving him. I got him.
Guys, can you guys use the glaive?
I'm glaving.
Carve me a
Super
turkey while you're at it.
Memes aside, the overall gameplay is solid and Bungie has taken considerable strides towards making gunfights more interesting and engaging. Most notable of the bunch are of course the new Hive Guardians wielding the different light powers. While this is pretty sweet and cool to witness, I was also somewhat disappointed that the Hive didn't get their own versions of supers rather than just mimicking ours. For instance, does speccing into solar only equate to Blade Barrage? Seeing the Hive establish their own versions of each subclass would have been neat to see. Other cool gameplay additions include the ability to crush enemy ghosts and a new enemy type in the form of a Firefly. Both of these add a welcome twist to the standard game plan of guns go brrr. I'll also add that throughout both my playthroughs of the campaign, I never got sick of seeing the Hive ghosts being crushed between my fingers. It's oddly satisfying. Last thing to mention here for me are the boss fights. While some encounters still utilize the same staggered damage phase formula we are so accustomed to, there are others that not only break the mold, but also feel rather epic. This is especially true for the final battle, which rivals something you might see in a raid. The same can be said about other portions of the campaign, which for me are on par with some of the previous dungeon or raid experiences.
Dude, massive. The Hive literally just got their powers. And of course they copied ours. I mean, they haven't had any time to learn how to quote-unquote make it their own.
Is this part of the lore, or did you just make this up on the spot?
Well, the lore states that we only really had the abilities subclasses that we have because we've trained to be able to use them, aka like how Ikora basically is the strongest guardian and cheats the system by casting multiple supers. It kind of holds in terms of lore, but yeah, I was kind of making that up a little bit.
Okay, lore nerd. I think we need Malin in here to fact check this load of bullshit.
Giddy up!
And I have a third thing to say.
Oh, I bet you do. Here we go.
No, that was it.
Oh.
I thought it was going to be something about Ace of Spades. Okay, so we already talked about the glaive, so no reason to beat a dead horse. I'll just say skeptic at first, but I'm a believer now. Shockingly, no one said anything about Void 3.0 yet. The changes to the Void subclasses, aka the Stasis treatment, has been nothing short of completely reshaping how the game is played. The additions and changes to everything Void were just what the game needed to completely revitalize the build crafting we thought we had in the past. The many different types of crazy new builds that you can make are just, they're nuts. When Bungie started with Stasis, we kind of got our first look into the addition of status abilities, and with Void 3.0, Bungie's gone full throttle. From being able to suppress and weaken large groups to my favorite, Volatile, the gameplay has drastically changed and I couldn't be happier.
If Destiny 1 had Music of the Spheres, then the Witch Queen has Music of the Prisms. This soundtrack is part of what makes Bungie games feel like Bungie games. They have taken what made the previous music great and carried it across to this expansion while adding new layers of mystery and darkness on top. It complements the tone of the story and the Hive really well. The music showcase on the title screen is the perfect introduction to the sounds you'll be experiencing, and it only gets more bombastic and visceral from there as you dive into the story.
Honestly, I rarely tend to put a lot of stock in the soundtrack unless it's just a banger. While the soundtrack for Witch Queen was pretty good, did a decent job of setting the tone of areas and engagements, for me, there's just nothing better still than the outer space platforming puzzle of Deepstone Crypt. The music here was good, but it wasn't that good.
Well, I think the soundtrack was straight up good, full stop. Being the owner of a $150 piece of plastic and some paper, thanks to my pre-order of the collector's edition box set, the soundtrack is one thing that I actually find value in. It's an epic soundscape, brought to life by a full orchestra and choir, with undertones of eeriness that fits Savathûn to a T. While I do agree with Bgame that Deepstone Crypt's lullaby song is one of Destiny's best, the Witch Queen soundtrack is still fantastic. I hope that Bungie continues their musical excellence for the next expansion, and I'm sure they will.
So this is kind of a tough one. This is definitely the best expansion in D2 history by a long shot. The innovations of the Void classes paired with a complete overhaul of the phoned-in campaigns of the past puts this expansion light years ahead of anything we've seen in D2 up to this point. But if I had to compare this expansion in scope to any other Destiny expansion, I would have to say The Taken King. And yes, I see how that's an easy out, but the two have the most in common, and it's not just in the sense that they both involve hive gods. Both were huge expansions that brought us to outright huge new areas to fight actual threats. In both Destinies, we were kind of just fighting things here and there, and yeah, they seemed to be huge threats, but we always just blew past them until we came to the Taken King and now Witch Queen. Both of these expansions offered us actual threats to our existence instead of the usual stumble upon something bad and opt to deal with it.
This is the best campaign expansion, period. From the details poured into the setting, the twists delivered in the story, and new gameplay additions, this combination outclasses any other Destiny content, even the main releases such as the Red War. Gul ain't got
Giddy up
on Savathûn, and you don't have to look any further than the final battle against Teach. Savathûn just does it with style and a dash of deceit. Chef's kiss. Mwah.
For Destiny 2 campaigns, Witch Queen is a satisfying one for me. Definitely one of D2's better ones. I think my all-time favorite D2 campaign is still Forsaken though. Bungie was able to create such a high bar with Forsaken that I think it'll be really tough to beat for me. To this day, the Dreaming City has some of the most beautiful video game aesthetics. The unforgettable story of Cayde 6's death, along with our revenge for his murder, is going to be really hard to top for me. But don't get me wrong, it's been a long time since I have felt like Bungie is giving a great deal of effort to the story, and I'm glad to see it. Again, I hope it continues past this initial expansion and into the upcoming smaller seasons as well.
The Witch Queen is
Pretty.
Pretty good.
That is, if we are strictly speaking campaign. It seems that Bungie has put all their efforts into the campaign, and as a result, other areas of the game are severely lacking. Things like the Crucible are still a shit show. The 6-man match-made activity is cookie-cutter content, and the whole crafting system seems half-baked with the typical convoluted systems Bungie likes to implement into its new mechanics. So while the campaign is a step forward and setting a new bar, the other components of the game take a step back. The game always seems to be just 2 to 3 steps behind achieving its full potential.
So, Witch Queen's campaign. Is it any good, Jetkill? Well, I enjoyed it. There's a certain sense of Savathûn and the Hive losing their mystery, which is of course going to happen when you're explicitly told things about them that were previously shrouded in a thick layer of everything you know could be lies. Superb art direction and music are real standouts for me, and as a part of the overall Witch Queen package, I'd say it's almost worth the $40 price tag. My ideal price would be $30, especially when you look over at enormous, beautiful next-gen, or I suppose current-gen now, games such as Horizon Forbidden West and Elden Ring for $70.
If you are looking for just a banger of a campaign, you've come to the right place. From the legendary mode to the overhaul of the Void subclasses, there's a whole slew of things for you to do. The setting is amazing, the twists in the story along with the reveals are absolutely worth it. The only problem I would warn about is the completely botched evidence board quest tied to the Wellspring. Bungie really fucked up by making the quest dependent on RNG, wrapped in another layer of RNG. Needless to say, the community is pretty livid with this, as go figure, it's directly tied to all of the exotic glaives that we've been hyped on. Great job, Bungie. Besides that monstrous shortcoming, the expansion is still 100% worth it.
And there you have it, number 5 in the books. We thank you for going on this adventure with us and would love to hear what you think about it, so leave a comment down below, and we will see you in the next one.